The year was 1995. Abuja has just been made the capital city of Nigeria just 4 years ago, but the capital city had no international airport. As the seat of government, there was a plan to build an airport in Abuja, but the delay was making things worse and making things better too, an opportunity for scammers. The world was about to witness the third largest banking crime in history. Paul Oguma was then the governor of the Central Bank of Nigeria, and General Sani Abacha was the head of state. Outside the official committee set up for fund mobilization for an international airport in Abuja, an unofficial committee of 5 men and a woman has gone ahead to mobilize funds for the new airport too. The leader of this group was Mr. Emmanuel Nwude, who was as at then a director in Union Bank of Nigeria. In a few months' time, he will be selling a fake airport to a bank. Firstly, he decided to contact as many international banks as possible, seeking sponsorship for the new airport, in return for financial benefits to whoever will accept the offer. He was offering a $10 million commission to any bank director who will invest his bank's money. In the fax messages he sent to these international bank directors, he addressed himself as Mr. Tafida Williams, a director of finance in Nigeria's Ministry of Aviation. But there was nobody like Tafida Williams in the ministry. Among the banks he contacted, one of them suddenly responded to his fax. It was Mr. Nelson Sakaguchi, the director of Brazil's Banco Noroeste. Nelson wrote back to Emmanuel, who claims to be Mr. Tafida Williams, telling him that he is interested in the offer because his bank has been looking for investment opportunities overseas. As they kicked off communication, they exchanged contacts and discussed more about the deal. To further make the deal look real and more attractive, Emmanuel Nwude had to call Nelson Sakaguchi. This time, he came with a new identity, claiming to be Mr. Paul Oguma, the governor of the Central Bank of Nigeria. He told Nelson that he had some communications with Mr. Tafida Williams, who gave him his contact. Nelson never knew he was still discussing with the same person. Acting as the governor of the Central Bank of Nigeria, Emmanuel further convinced Nelson that the deal was legitimate and that his interest is also protected. He offered Nelson the privilege of granting him this investment opportunity if he can invest the required $242 million. According to Emmanuel's persuasion, it is a win-win for both of us. If you invest, you get your benefits. Nelson saw it as an opportunity to step up financially, a deal that will give him more than everything he had earned working as a bank staff for many years. He never knew he was about to step backward. They scheduled to have a meeting somewhere outside Nigeria and Brazil. They concluded to meet in London. Emmanuel went back to the drawing board to discuss further with his team. Among his team of 5 men and a woman, Emmanuel was to present himself as the governor of the Central Bank of Nigeria. Another member would act as the deputy governor of the Central Bank. Another would act as the finance director in Ministry of Aviation, Mr. Williams. They all assigned important positions to themselves. On the day of the London meeting, they sent a limousine to pick up Nelson from the airport, which further convinced Nelson that he was dealing with high-ranking government officials. They kept him in a 5-star hotel. While the meeting was on, they all introduced themselves according to plan. Emmanuel presented to Nelson some cover letters from the government, which were all fake. To serve as proof of commitment, Emmanuel told Nelson to transfer to them $3 million, as they would need to reach out to contractors immediately and engage in some committee planning before the project will begin. The $3 million was to serve as a commitment that the Brazilian bank was ready to fund the project. Anytime Nelson showed any sign of doubt, Emmanuel would remind him that there are so many banks waiting to grab the offer if he is not interested. It was 1995. The internet had not grown to the extent that Nelson could verify the identity and the looks of the men he was discussing with. He all believed what he was told, including the fact that they agreed to have a meeting with him. To him, they were genuine representatives of the government and not in any way scammers. Between 1995 and 1998, Nelson transferred a total of $242 million to Emmanuel and his group. The transfers were made in 17 different bank accounts in 17 countries, which makes it harder to trace. As the payments were being made, Emmanuel was sending to Nelson documents of the process of the project and other agreements made in connection to the project. These were all fake documents. By 1998, Banco Noreste began experiencing some financial problems. A huge percentage of the bank's capital was missing. Jamie Lopez, one of the directors and a shareholder of the bank, demanded to know what could be the cause of the financial problem the bank was facing. He asked Nelson to present the bank's official books so that he can run a check and reconcile the problem. Nelson kept delaying to respond. As at that time, due to this financial issue, a Spanish bank named Banco Santander was offering to acquire this Brazilian bank. During the joint discussion about the acquisition, a significant discrepancy in figure was noticed. A vast sum of money, which represented a substantial portion of the bank's value and liquid capital, appeared to be missing. This gave Mr. Lopez the more reason to force Nelson to present the books. According to reports, he held Nelson by the neck and threatened to harm him, demanding him to present the bank's large transactions of the last 3 years. At this point, Nelson had no other reason than to admit the deals he made. He narrated to the bank how he had invested the $242 million into an airport project that would fetch the bank more millions in a few years to come, when the project will be completed. Despite Nelson's persistence that the deal was real, the bank contracted some international criminal investigation groups to figure out the authenticity of the project and trace the movement of funds over the last 3 years. However, as all these were going on, the deal to buy the bank by a Spanish bank was still on the table, and in the absence of the missing funds, the bank's value will have to be reduced. Instead of the $500 million the Spanish bank was offering to pay, the Simonsen and Koshilin families, who were the owners of the Brazilian bank, Banco Noreste, agreed to pay the $242 million to balance the bank's book and to get more value from the sale. Nelson Sakaguchi was arrested and tried. He was later sent to prison. The investigating team could not easily arrest Emmanuel or any of the team members in Nigeria because as at then, their identity was somehow unknown, until the investigative team was able to pressure the Nigerian banks, where some of the money were transferred to reveal to them the identities of the owners of the accounts. But there was one more problem. Due to the absence of a financial crime law and commission in Nigeria, the investigators could not arrest or bring Emmanuel and his group to book. After a few months, unfortunately for Emmanuel and his group, a new president came to power in Nigeria in 1999. That was Chief Olusegun Obasanjo. By 2003, he established a Financial Crimes Commission in Nigeria called EFCC. With this new commission, it was time for the investigators to launch their contacts in Nigeria and get Emmanuel and his team arrested. After a long legal process, one of the group members confessed to the crime and received a prison sentence of 2.5 years, along with an order to repay $25.5 million. Emmanuel and other accomplices of his later pleaded guilty and collectively received prison sentences totaling 25 years. Alongside the amount of money Emmanuel and other team members were mandated to pay back, some of their assets were also confiscated and returned to the victims, the two families that owned Banco Noreste. That is the sad end of the crime. Thank you for your time. Please don't forget to subscribe and follow for more to come.